And now,
from Greater Sandton and beyond, get ready for the Sandton Times Hour
with your host,
Alexander.
Ladies and gentlemen, everyone in between and beyond, this is the Sandton Times Hour on Mix 93.8 and also available on all those good podcast platforms. I'm Alexander Leitner, and this is edition 130. It's week 36 of 2023. Hello, September, you beauty, and I'm excited to be with you again. If you'd like to send through your questions, comments, or feedback, you can do so visiting your email, and you can email editor@sandtontimes.co.za. You can also visit your social media accounts and type in @Sandton Times and follow us there, or visit the website and you can type in www.sandtontimes.co.za for more. And if you're listening live on Mix 93.8 and not at a later stage on any of the many platforms you can get the show on, well, the WhatsApp line is open, 084 822 0938, 084 822 0938. A very special welcome to you if you live in Johannesburg or Pretoria or anywhere in Greater Gauteng, across South Africa, and of course, wherever you are in the world or in the universe, online or on air. Wherever you are, I'm happy to report that all is well in Sandton land for another week. Always an interesting week in Sandton. Never a dull moment. I'm joined once again by my left-hand man. It's Vincenzo. Not that he's just left-handed, but he's, you know what I mean. He's the left-hand man. And this is the week. The Rugby World Cup 2023 in France is almost upon us, and a quick reminder that you can find all the first round match details on the Sandton Times website, as well as all the Springbok game times and dates. So we've isolated those for you on the website, so you don't have to go and look for them extensively. And then, of course, there's the full schedule as well of all those first round of games. And I must say, I'm really looking forward to the World Cup. I always enjoy a Rugby World Cup, and may the Springboks make us proud. Coming up on this week's show, talking about the Rugby World Cup, I'm joined by a former Springbok player to take a brief look at his outlook for South Africa in this year's tournament. Then the summer holidays are coming ever closer, and if you're planning to travel domestically, I've got an update for you on flight ticket prices, so stay tuned for that. After that, a Sandton-based travel agency has left island-seeking holidaymakers out of pocket and without a holiday. I catch up with a journalist who has been following this case closely. Then, this is a packed show, let me tell you. I chat to an up-and-coming talent from Sandton who has released her first ever single, which will be playing a bit later on. And then finally, she's back to provide all her fans a dose of Whitney Houston's greatest songs. This and more coming up in the Sandton Times Hour this week. But let's get into the mood for this hour. And here's a song that has become synonymous with the Rugby World Cup. Solo Mio with World in Union on the Sandton Times Hour on Mix 93.8.
Show some love.
subscribe, share,
Leave a review and rating for the Sandton Times Hour
on your favorite podcast app now.
The best of Sandton and beyond.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
This is the Sandton Times Hour on Mix 93.8 and available on all good podcast platforms. And there we had it. World in Union. They always do one for the World Cup. I'm not quite sure if they've done one for 2023 yet. I haven't heard it yet, but they always do a good job with it, and it just gets you in the spirit as the World Cup kicks off. 2023 Rugby World Cup in France. 8th September is when it all happens, when France versus New Zealand, and then it all ends on the 28th of October 2023, and fingers crossed the Springboks will be there for the final, as they have done so 3 times over. But talking about the Springboks and talking about the World Cup, I'm thrilled to be joined by former Springbok Bob Skinstad on the line. Bob, thank you so much for making the time to be on the Sandton Times Hour.
No worries, it's good to be here, Alex. Thanks very much for having me.
Well, Bob, you probably have flashbacks to your first Rugby World Cup, and you probably can empathize with a lot of the guys as they prepare and get ready for probably the biggest tournament of their life.
Oh, big time. I mean, it's such an amazing tournament to be part of, because it really captivates the whole world of rugby. Everybody who knows about rugby, even if your national team might not be in the final 20, you would have been part of the qualifying. You would have, you would be watching the big games, and you're just glued to that screen on the opening ceremony, and then the opening match are always amazing because there's this history of who's gone before, who the host is, what the biggest match in the world is, etc. And that's going to start with an absolute bang in Paris on the 8th of September.
So, Bob, I mean, you've been out of the game for a little bit. I mean, you haven't been playing in a World Cup recently, but you're probably keeping tabs on how the team is doing, how it's put together. What are your thoughts with the Springboks? Have they got what it takes to take it all the way?
Well, look, I have been out of the game, but I've broadcast on all of the World Cups. So I've been sort of close enough to see what people are thinking, who's got confidence going into a tournament, etc. And we've always had this lovely traditional sort of view that South Africa play well when the games are tight. So we've got a chance. New Zealand probably are the second best at World Cups. If you think about the number of World Cups we've been, New Zealand been at 9, they've won 3. We've been at 7 and we've won 3. So we've got a much better winning record than anybody in World Cups. We've also won 2 away from home, which New Zealand haven't been able to do. So, I mean, I think this one is different because it's quite wide open. You can't say that at the last World Cup everybody was scared about Ireland or everybody was scared about France because they weren't in the kind of form that they are in now. But suddenly they're rearing their heads and they're knocking over sort of amazing teams with alarming consistency. You also can't say that people would have been scared of Argentina, in the same way that Ireland are suddenly number 1 in the world. Argentina are the giant killers of world rugby at the moment. They've beaten, in the last 18 months, they've beaten New Zealand, South Africa and Australia, so and England. So, I mean, you sort of think to yourself, well, this is a World Cup that everybody is going to look at and say there's a few more bogey teams in the pools. So we might see some quarterfinals that are very different to what we're used to.
Interesting. Well, I think we did see that in the FIFA World Cup as well, on the soccer front, where suddenly teams appeared and performed that hadn't really been on the radar at all. And it would be fascinating to see that happening in the Rugby World Cup. I mean, apart from like you said, the hot favourites that we always anticipate to do well, be interesting to see if there are some up-and-coming teams that really surprise us all. The Springboks have also been known to be the team that performs when it counts. I know there's been a lot of people in the build-up to the World Cup have said, the team isn't quite there yet. There's a couple of things that they still haven't quite worked out. But the Springboks, it's the kind of team that plays when it matters. Are you anticipating a similar sort of thing in the World Cup?
Yeah, I think you're right. The Springboks have traditionally done very well and winning games that maybe the opposition or the rest of the world wrote them off in, if you know what I mean. When our backs are against the wall, we're a tough team to beat, which is a great reputation to have. It means that, the harder it gets, the more likely we are to come out. And you've got to understand that in a World Cup, there's about 3 or 4 extra factors that amplify the pressure. One of them is that every point matters. So every single instant in the game means something for where you end up in your pool. If you miss a kick at goal, if you miss a kick for touch, if someone doesn't, convert a try, if someone misses a tackle, it could end up that 1 point or 2 points, puts you below someone else in your pool and therefore you don't qualify. So it's not like rugby championship where you go, we either win or we don't really care, if you know what I mean. If we're in contention to be number 1, we're excited. If we're battling Australia for sort of second and third, we don't care how we play. We go out there and we can pick any team and we can do. In the World Cup, you can't really do that. We've got this incredibly tough opening fixture against Scotland. Let's just say, luck runs our way and we pick up a win there, but we don't get a bonus point. If we don't get a bonus point, our next 2 matches are incredibly critical. Or our next match is then critical because we want to then have a bonus point win plus a normal win before we come up against Ireland. If Ireland knock us over, but we get a bonus point, we could still make it out of the pool. But then Ireland-Scotland is a huge game. And then we want to get our full 5 points against Romania. And nobody that I know is focusing as much as I am on Tonga. I think Tonga could knock over a really big team this World Cup. I think they've got a fantastic backline. They might need to be a little bit more organized in the forwards, but they've got some, European club rugby winning forwards in their starting lineup, and they've got some World Cup winning backs in their backline. I mean, Malachi Fakatoa, he's played 45 times for the All Blacks, and he'll start in the backline for Tonga. I mean, that's a serious team to come up against, especially when you need to guarantee a 5-point victory. So I think those factors add to that pressure. They add to what happens week in and week out, and then the press jumps on it. And then fans back home are sending messages that might be negative in the week, and you get down on yourself. I mean, it really is a cauldron of extra pressure. And that's why teams who can put that to one side and deliver on the day and maybe play a slightly tighter type of rugby, which is what we as the Springboks do, you've got an advantage. It's not the kind of rugby that I was known for or liked to play, but it was effective rugby. And it was rugby that I was happy to be part of in a team. If you score 2 tries in a match, but you grind it out because your defense is amazing and you don't make mistakes, I'm also a happy player.
Tremendous. Well, listen, I think we're all with the Springboks, and I mean, it would be amazing to bring in another victory considering we just did it in 2019, which feels like a decade ago after COVID and after the lockdown.
I know, it's gone so quickly, hasn't it?
It has indeed, but here we are again, and all our hopes and dreams are with the team. And Bob Skinstad, former Springbok player, it's been an absolute pleasure connecting with you on the Sandton Times Hour, and thank you so much for your input.
No worries. Thanks very much for having me. And just remember, all the fans out there, South Africa, the team can't do it without our support.
Well, that's a good message to send out there. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back after this.
The best of talk and music in 1 hour. This is the Sandton Times Hour. From Greater Sandton to the rest of the world, this is the Sandton Times Hour.
This is the Sandton Times Hour on Mix 93.8 and available on all good podcast platforms wherever you are in the world. And, talking about the Springboks, talking about the World Cup, one of those brands that has been very closely associated with the Springboks, well, they do a regular catch-up. I think it's like an annual thing where we look at what the outlook is for domestic flights and travel ahead of the busy festive season, which is literally around the corner, and they'll probably tell you it's already too late for you to book your tickets. But the sooner you can get onto it, the better. I'm joined by Kirby Gordon. He is the Chief Marketing Officer of FlySafair. Kirby, it's good to chat to you again.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Kirby, before we get into matters of aviation and travel, your predictions for the Springboks at the World Cup?
We're going to take it all the way home, man. We have to. Come on, let's do it. Second time around.
All right, we'll get those planes ready for the homecoming tour or the homecoming celebrations.
Listen, I mean, I'm kind of tempted. I think we might break a few rules, probably sponsor rules and or civil aviation rules, but I wouldn't mind if the Springboks do get through to the finals. Can you imagine if we can do one of those flyovers like we did at Loftus? That would be absolutely epic.
Well, you heard it here first. So that would be truly amazing.
I'll see what I can do.
Well, Kirby, you and I, we sat down a while back chatting about the ticket prices ahead of the December break. And this was obviously quite a big thing last year because we were in a situation where Comair had just sort of folded. There was a lot of demand, not enough supply. A lot of the domestic airlines had to sort of reshuffle, get aircraft in, create more capacity. There was a spike in prices. People were losing their mind. They were thinking, 16th of December, it's costing me so much money to fly to Plet, Durban, and all these other places. What's the picture looking like for 2023 December?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you've summed up the sort of story of the last year in a bit quite succinctly. I mean, that was very much the reality. We saw one of the major players leave towards sort of at about May of last year. And then there's been this kind of this process of the domestic airlines really trying to capture as much of the market as they can and fill that gap. Wherever there's an opportunity for any company in any industry to get in there and actually, make a bit of money out of it. Of course, the free market will prevail and that'll happen. And so, we've been actively trying to do that, all of us, and we're sort of at a great point now where the market is we're at roughly about 80% of the domestic seat capacity, the supply that we had in 2019, the sort of proverbial pre-COVID number. More importantly, I think what's relevant is that's seeing the market in a sort of stasis now. So what we're seeing that supply actually meeting the demand. And unfortunately, the sort of sad part of that story is that the demand is down, which is to be expected given the fact that we've, all been struggling economically. The folks have got kind of a little bit less disposable income thanks to high interest rates and the increasing cost of living. But the good news is that for consumers, the market is healthy. There's no longer that supply constraint. And so what that should mean is that from here on outwards, actually, prices will be very much more set by that market where that supply meets that demand. 16th of December, Alex, is still going to be expensive. I mean, it's always the peak period, it's going to be crazy. That is the reality. That's how the market works. That's how the industry works. So, you got to box smart to get yourself a way around that and save a few bob, either, leave a few days early or a few days late. But on the whole, things should actually really stabilize now.
Well, I was going to touch on that because I think that came out of that round table when we were sitting down, saying that the economics of airline tickets and travel still remain the same. There's a supply and demand issue. There's so many seats that you've got that you can take people to. The less seats there are, the prices ramp up the closer you get to the popular dates. You mentioned don't fly on the 16th, try and fly on the 12th or the 13th and take your laptop or whatever it is and try and work from wherever you're going. Or the other big thing is book your tickets right now. I mean, It's probably already too late now. You should have booked it in May already, but the sooner you can book your tickets and then make a plan if you need to shuffle it around closer to the time, but the sooner you get into the game, the better.
Yeah, I mean, those who sort of have a little bit of a background in economics will know the old proverbial thing that we always talk about, the supply curve and the demand curve. And the reality is that in our in our industry, supply is quite sticky, right? I mean, it takes a lot to add additional capacity into the market. You got to train pilots, you got to train cabin attendants, you got to find and buy aircraft, you got to get them certified. So that sort of that parameter moves quite slowly and with a bit of difficulty. And that's the one that's really like normalized and adjusted now, which is what we needed to see. Demand, on the other hand, in our industry, it fluctuates on a day-to-day basis. And I mean, as you say, that demand for those peak periods, when everyone gets on holiday and everyone wants to get away, that's when it's going to be absolutely insane. On an idle Tuesday in the middle of winter when the kids are at school and there's not much else happening, we can't actually give away tickets to fill up aircraft. And so that reality in that market will always come into play and will still be the factor that consumers will face. But that's what we need as an aviation industry. I mean, that's how the game of aviation works, passenger aviation, is you have periods that are low, where you often make a loss and you need to just carry that through. And then you have periods where, there's high demand and you're able to, what we call, yield a little bit higher and offset those other spaces. Because unfortunately, we can't just own aircraft and hire pilots when it's kind of convenient to do so. It's not a sort of pay-as-you-go scenario on the supply side. So, we've got to have that aircraft the whole time.
If I remember the numbers correctly, I think pre-COVID, you commanded about 24% of the market. If you look at the entire domestic flying market, all the different locations averaged out, and I'm sure there's an algorithm that you've got to work that out, that was 24%. Post-COVID, you're now sitting at 67%, so you've really gained market share in the market, but like they say, heavy is the head that wears the crown. What does that mean in terms of your preparations now that you've become a very significant player in the domestic space?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's been an amazing opportunity and an amazing growth trajectory. I think we've rested now for about 2 months, but prior to this, we added 14 aircraft over 14 months, which was a massive energy on our side to try and get that space and to fill that market gap. And it's been great to do that. So it's obviously now facing the reality of being a much larger organization. We're looking at this point to just sort of normalize as we reach the stage. I don't think there's a lot more scope, given the demand that's out there, to add a whole lot more aircraft onto a schedule. So we're going to use this opportunity now to consolidate and to really kind of batten down the hatches, make sure that we're watching all of those cost parameters, make sure that we're using this new scale to find the efficiencies that we can to drive costs down and drive down those fares, and ensure that we can actually come to market with something as strong as what we had before, if not even better.
Fantastic. Well, there you have it, Kirby Gordon. He's the Chief Marketing Officer there at FlySafair. And if you have ever needed a starting gun to say it's time to plan your vacation or your end-of-year holiday or your trip to visit family, this is it. Take this moment, get onto the website right now and start planning your holidays, because if you leave it too late, you're either going to be left without a seat or you're going to be left with a seat that's going to cost you a fair bit more than what you were planning to spend. It's the bottom of the hour. We're going to take a quick musical break. More of the Sandton Times Hour right after this.
Back for more?
The Sandton Times Hour continues.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour on Mix 93.8 with Whitney Houston and I Want to Dance with Somebody. And if that song doesn't get you in the mood for anything, then I don't know what will. And we're going to touch on Whitney in a few minutes. But first, let me remind you about the show notes. And my name is Alexander Leipner. And if you've heard anything on this show and you can't remember the details, you didn't write down the website address or the phone number or something like that, don't worry. We're going to put it up all on the sandtontimes.co.za, and you can get that information at your own leisure during the week. And you'll never miss out on anything. And also don't forget that you can also follow us on @Sandton Times on whatever social media platform you are on. We're there, and you can get the details then. Also, feel free to connect, reach out, and share your thoughts and feedback. Now, an interesting thing that's happened, talking about travel before the break, there's been another sort of one of these disasters in terms of travel agents. And I'm thrilled to be joined by Devina Haripersad. She is a business and data journalist with The Citizen, and she did a story on this. And Devina, it's great to have you on the Sandton Times Hour.
Thank you for having me.
So, Devina, tell me a little bit more about Priority Escapes. They were a travel agency, from what I understand, that specifically offered tremendous trips to places like the Maldives. They had chartered flights. I mean, they were doing pretty well for a couple of years. And then suddenly, over the last couple of weeks/months, this all went pear-shaped.
Yes, so Priority Escapes, they marketed themselves as Maldives specialists, and their key feature was that they had access to direct flights from South Africa to the Maldives. So it was a draw factor for a lot of people, and they've been operating for a few years. From the people I have spoken to, a lot of them found Priority Escapes through referrals. So it was their friends who would say, listen, I've been on a trip organized by this company, and it seemed pretty reputable. So a lot of people booked their trips via this travel agent.
Devina, how did you come across this story? Did you have people reaching out to you?
Yeah, so actually what happened was I was at the police station getting a document certified. And while I was there, I saw a woman. I think she might have been a nurse, or she was in the medical field because she was in scrubs. And she had come to lay the complaint. And I heard about her plight, and she had lost around 230,000 with Priority Escapes. And I spoke to her at that point, and I empathized with her, and then she told me what had happened. And I didn't really follow up much more on that. It was only much later when another friend of mine had messaged me and said, hey, this is blowing up on social media. This guy also just took his money as well and never came back with the booked flights or anything of that sort. And I realized, you know what, he's actually been scamming a lot of people. So when I published the first story, I've got a lot of feedback of people saying, hey, who are coming to the party and saying, hey, he scammed me of this much and this much. And doing the research, we've seen that, there's a WhatsApp group with around 25 people, I think, in the WhatsApp group who have been scammed by this guy. And collectively, he's taken around 10 million from them. So when I used the Wayback Machine to trace the website again. And when I went back to the website to look at some of the holidays he was advertising, a lot of them were very underpriced. So I assumed at some point he was paying out of pocket for these holidays. When I checked in with people, they said that a number of their friends had said that they booked with him and they went, and they had actually gone on their holidays. But I don't think I think he honored some holidays. I think he didn't honor the others. Well, when I checked in with the police to get an official statement, they said to me that the earliest cases registered against this owner of the company was in 2021. I think it's been going on for quite some time. It's just that now it's been in the public view of things.
It's a very similar story to what we'd heard with another travel agency, which had also gone a similar route in terms of people suddenly finding themselves without a trip and without, an out-of-pocket company called Hello Darlings. Do you find that these were quite similar stories, or are they quite different?
They're extremely similar. It was the same issue. Also, the director of that company, Tasneem Mullah, or Musa, she was known as Taz. She also disappeared. It's the same with the director of this company that seems to have also just disappeared. There are fraud cases against him, but we also haven't heard of his arrest. So we're not sure if he's still in the country or not, which is very similar to the case of Taz, who disappeared with people's monies while she promised them holidays.
It's quite frightening, actually, because if you think about a trip to the Maldives, it's not a cheap trip to make. And this company was based in Greater Sandton. I think it's in Fourways, and they did have a lot of advertising, I think billboards. But one of the other big things that both these agencies did also use a lot were celebrity influencers. So you had a lot of well-known faces that were sitting on exotic beaches, in this case, the Maldives, raving about the fantastic holiday they were having. And I think a lot of people were taken by that.
Yes. So it was the former Miss South Africa. And I mean, when you look at that sort of credibility that's attached to this brand, you think, okay, fine, it's celebrity endorsed. It's pretty incredible. And that kind of added to people's trust in the brand. And which is why so many of them went this route to purchase their holidays with this brand, with trust in them from the perspective that celebrities were using them as well.
Yeah. And look, in all fairness, I mean, as I say, on the one hand, it's a higher risk strategy for the business to take on celebrities because you never quite know what they're going to get up to. On the other hand, the celebrities aren't doing any sort of due diligence on the company they're dealing with. And when something like this happens, they're suddenly pulled into the entire thing as well. But it is maybe a warning shot in terms of being careful as to what you absorb in terms of social media and how these influencers influence you to part with your money. Well, it's certainly a warning to everybody. If you're planning your holidays, if you're looking to go somewhere at the end of the year, just be careful how you do it, who you deal with. And I suppose in this particular instance, it's very difficult to almost prejudge it because you said a lot of people were getting referrals from friends who had good experiences. There was a good track record at some point, but at this point, the music stopped and some people were left without a chair. It is heartbreaking to think that there are people who've spent an absolute fortune wanting to go on holiday and then found themselves out of pocket and without a holiday. And I'm sure in some instances, we're talking about honeymoons, anniversaries, and all these things that people celebrate when they do go to the Maldives. And we're going to keep an eye on the story and hopefully also get some finalization or some more insights into it. But Devina Haripersad, business and data journalist with The Citizen, experienced in the finance industry, I thank you for making the time to be with me on the Sandton Times Hour.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
Right, it's time to chat to some local talent. When I say local, I'm talking about Greater Sandton, and I'm thrilled to be joined by a new up-and-coming talent, 16-year-old Emma Temlett. She goes to school at Red Hill High School in Sandton, and she's released a single that we're going to play in a couple of minutes' time. I'm going to chat to her first. Emma, it's great to have you on the Sandton Times Hour.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, listen, congratulations on your first release, your debut single, Claustrophobic.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a little bit more? What's the inspiration behind a song? I mean, most people are quite upset if they're claustrophobic, but for you, it seems to be a bit of a hit.
Yeah, so I wrote Claustrophobic around friendships because I feel like in today's time, most songs are romance songs, and I love that. But nobody really talks about the issues of friendship, where that's the point where I was struggling in my life. So the lyrics are all about loving somebody so much that you make them feel claustrophobic and, like overwhelmed. There's no space for anything else, hence the lyrics. And so, yeah, writing is just kind of my way to get these emotions out, and hopefully others can relate and it heals them. Yeah.
Well, it's quite impressive to come up with a track like that. I mean, at 16, most people are still trying to figure out what to do with life, never mind trying to figure out relationships. But you've also worked with producer Daniel Barron, who isn't an unfamiliar name in the space of music and entertainment. What was that like?
It was incredible. It was the best experience. As you know, Daniel, he's just such a down-to-earth person as well as extremely talented. And we got on immediately. And he was such a good teacher since I'm so young, and this is my first time doing it. He sat with me through every step. He didn't let me feel confused or out of the loop. And honestly, I mean, I've never been happier when I was in the studio with him.
Amazing. And he's a great talent. He's released some fantastic tracks. But I think, I mean, especially with you, and I can kind of relate to this because at one point I used to present KTV, but I came into KTV at a very late stage in my career. But when I wanted to first go into television, my parents said, well, there's no way you're going to be presenting television at 16 when you've still got to go to school. You've got to now put together an album and balance academic commitments. How do you even start doing that?
So I think everybody has their hobbies, right? Some people, their hobbies are academic, so they will put all their time and effort into that. But doing something you love just re-energizes you, and it's kind of like your outlet, like I said earlier. So my music is a way to let my creativity flow and kind of recharge. And so I don't struggle with balancing academics with my music, because in a way it works together. My music is me and I'm my music. So yeah, I think I couldn't actually do as well in school if it wasn't for that.
Well, I mean, you're really putting yourself out there on the line. That's the thing, with being creative. It's like you said, it's a part of you, and you are part of the music. And how do you start managing those emotions, those nerves, and that excitement as you put out this song and also an album in 2024?
Yeah, I think the nerves around this song was I just really wanted people to love it and to hear it for exactly what it was, because it's so authentic to myself. And every lyric that I've written in Claustrophobic is exactly how I felt at that point in time and how I have been feeling. So I'm really keen on the fact that I want to keep writing authentic lyrics with catchy, melodies that people can enjoy. But I think I don't necessarily get nervous around the fact, because I think as soon as you start getting stressed or anxious around your passion, then it kind of comes to question, why are you doing it? And I know the reasons why I'm doing it, because I love it and I want people to have that safe space. So I don't really get nervous, but if I do, I always remind myself why I'm doing it.
Well, you just performed the song at Redfest, at the music festival here at Red Hill School, which just took place now in July. I think you performed it for the very first time. What was it like being on stage with some really big names, but also performing in front of some of your schoolmates?
No, it was incredible. It was more than I could have ever expected. I honestly, I just came alive, and I think people could tell that she's just doing what she loves to do. I did a half-an-hour set, but Claustrophobic was so well received. The audience knew it. There were kids in the front, teenagers in the middle, adults in the back, so all generations, and they loved it. Everyone knew the lyrics, and I felt so blessed. Yeah.
You're now embarking on putting an entire album together, which is quite a daunting task. I mean, I don't know how many tracks fit onto an album now, because it all gets released on digital, so I don't even know if track lists make much of a difference. But what is the rest of the album going to sound like? Is it going to be much more the same as your debut single, or are you going to be exploring a couple of other sort of directions with the sound?
Yeah, so the goal is to release an EP album, which is kind of a mini album, about 4 or 5, probably 5 songs. And right now I feel most like I want to make this a pop album. So there will be some upbeat songs, definitely, to dance, some authentic songs, because some of my inspiration is Taylor Swift and Billie Eilish, and I love a good ballad. So, I think you can just expect good vibes and good music. And yeah, I'm super excited for it.
Fantastic. Well, listen, good luck with it. What some advice do you have for, young women your age? I mean, some people are just scared to be on TikTok and Instagram, never mind put themselves out there with a full album and singing. What kind of advice do you have for them?
My advice is pretty generic, but it's so true. Don't let people put you down for what you love to do. Most of the time, if they have try to comment on what you're doing, it's just because they're jealous that they don't have the courage to go out and do it. And so post that TikTok, post that Instagram reel, put yourself out there, because people will recognize it. I was quite nervous to post my first TikTok, and it blew up. We got 200,000 views on TikTok. People were loving it. And obviously there's going to be people that don't support you, but you have to focus on the overwhelming positive aspect of it and just keep doing what you love doing, because at the end of the day, we all have talents and we should all use them.
Well, there you have it. Emma Temlett going to school here at Red Hill High School. She's just released her first single, which we're going to have a listen to right now. It's Claustrophobic. And Emma, thank you so much for joining me on the Sandton Times Hour. We're going to take a quick musical break and more of the Sandton Times Hour right after this.
Follow the Sandton Times on social media.
At Sandton Times.
This is the Sandton Times Hour on Mix 93.8, and that was Emma Temlett with Claustrophobic. And I think it's a fantastic track, and it's great to see young talent emerging out of Greater Sandton, and let's see what else comes from that. Talking about great talent coming out of Greater Sandton, but more so out of South Africa, I'm thrilled to be joined by Belinda Davids. She's doing a show called The Greatest Love of All, a tribute to Whitney Houston at the Joburg Theatre, and it runs up until the 10th of September. And Belinda, you probably have heard her. I mean, if you haven't, I don't know where you've been, because she's been all over YouTube. I mean, she was famously on Got Talent and did unbelievably well with the Golden Buzzer. And Belinda, how would you describe your relationship with Whitney Houston and her music? Because that's really who you embody when you stand on stage?
Intimate is what comes to mind. I have seen like fans, like proper fans of Mariah Carey. I've seen some proper fans of Beyonce. And I think we are the same generation. I would like to think that we are the same generation, and the generation of Whitney Houston, that era. And let me tell you something. I was obsessed with her. I wish she had a name for her fans, like Mariah Carey has lambs, the lambs, and Beyonce has the beehive. Maybe I need to create my own, but it's very intimate. That's all I have to say about that.
It's quite remarkable. I mean, I've heard you perform live, and you really do just absolutely hit the notes. I mean, you at one point you're sort of not quite sure exactly if you're watching Belinda or if you're watching Whitney, because you really do nail it so well. And and it's so sad in so many instances because we've had such great talents leave us so early, and to be able to still have some sort of taste of what it was like, especially for the generations who didn't live through those great times when they were still touring and doing live shows. It's quite remarkable, and I mean, it's quite amazing that you haven't gotten tired of performing Whitney Houston songs.
I don't think I ever will. If you look at where the world is with music today, and I'm specifically talking about pop artists, urban pop artists, hip hop artists, the newer hip hop artist, Amapiano. Now, okay, I don't even want to throw in Amapiano in there because, this is our Amapiano belongs to South Africa. Amapiano belongs to us.
Yeah.
But if you look at where music is in the world today, I think that Whitney Houston is someone that you want to go back to. I don't think I'll ever get bored of her music, ever get bored of doing her music even.
Yeah.
She was so ahead of her time.
And it's just certain songs that are absolutely timeless. I mean, you hear them time and time again, and you never get tired of them. One of which I played a little bit earlier on, which is Dance with Somebody. It's just got a great feel.
Yeah.
I mean, you can never be in a bad mood when you listen to that particular track. Do you have a favorite Whitney Houston song that you listen to time and time again and just never get tired of?
No, it's hard to say. I always find myself skipping to the next and going, oh my God, yeah. Oh yeah, I remember where I was with this song. It's hard to say. In the show, I have nothing. I love doing the song. It's difficult. It's challenging. It's beautiful. It's big. Love doing the song every time.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, especially with songs like Whitney Houston's portfolio that has some very deep, meaningful life experience kind of songs, it almost feels like you need to break it down verse by verse and actually sort of dig quite deep and unearth the minerals that are in these songs, because
definitely
you don't really get the full sort of essence of the songs that they and what they communicate.
Definitely. I mean, every song that I think she wrote the soundtracks of our lives. If you think about it, you think about Where Do Broken Hearts Go? Who the heck thought of where do broken hearts go? Where do they go?
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't matter because it was sang so beautifully that I was breaking up with my boyfriend at the time and I was listening to Where Do Broken Hearts Go? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She had incredible songwriters behind her. She did.
Absolutely, yeah. So if people haven't been to your show before, I mean, it's a show that you've been touring with. What can people expect from this particular show?
The way she was on stage. It's a musical concert. It's not a musical of her time or her lifetime. It's a musical concert. You get on stage, you get to the show and you see that it's all of her number one hits. You hear all of her number one hits from the beginning of her career right up until the end of her career. The costume changes the way she did it. The live band behind us. The visual is as amazing as the whole show itself. It's an experience. I think it's an experience that you have to come and see.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. Did you ever get a chance to interact with Whitney at any point? You would have probably been quite young at that stage, but did you ever get a chance to sort of get close?
No, I never got a chance to get close. I think I could probably tell you that when she was in South Africa, I was in Dubai. I was traveling and I was working in Dubai. When she was in America, I was in Hong Kong. So it didn't work out, and I'm really okay with that. Of course, every artist wants to meet their idol, but It didn't work out. And I'm okay with that. I have extreme memories of her that's going to stay with me forever.
Yeah. I mean, you were a great success already before the entire Got Talent exposure that you did get. But I mean, I'd almost hesitate to say that it was, that it didn't add anything to your career. I assume it was probably catapulted you into a slightly different level of exposure, because it is just such a well-watched and well-distributed show.
Yeah, BGT, of course, it's a massive platform. And yes, definitely that show did not make our show famous. It didn't catapult my career into the next level. It's an accolade, but I'll tell you one thing. When I go back to the UK, every time after BGT, it sells out, which I think speaks for itself, doesn't it? I mean, it's such a massive platform.
Well, there you have it. And before this show sells out, make sure you get yourself a ticket to The Greatest Love of All, a tribute to Whitney Houston there with Belinda Davids at the Joburg Theatre. And I'm thrilled that she's joined me here on the Sandton Times Hour. And Belinda, all the best for the rest of the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
And that's it for another Sandton Times Hour on Mix 93.8 and always available on all good podcast platforms. If you want to get in touch, you can email editor@sandtontimes.co.za or connect on social media @Sandton Times, or visit the website www.sandtontimes.co.za, and feel free to send through your comments, your questions, your feedback. Always welcome. Thank you to all my guests who made the time to be on the show this week, as well as Vincenzo, Vincenzo, you're always doing that audio thing that you do. And what more can I say? Thank you so much. Thank you to the Sandton Times team, as well as everyone at Mix 93.8. And thank you to you for listening. And let's connect again next week.
That's it for this week. Thanks for listening to the Sandton Times Hour. And if you enjoyed it, be sure to share it.